and then we'll start our discussion. Okay. So I said we'll look at taxation, and that's exactly what we are going to talk about. And this will be a very, very good starting point for people who are writing in September, especially everybody who is writing taxation, either GA10 or the CA 2.4 paper. That's still perfect. Okay, we are going to learn what taxation is. So I have a study manual. I'll share the study manual with everybody together with the PDF document, for for this discussion. There's a PDF document for just this discussion. There's a manual and there is a recording which we are going to get as well. Okay, so let us begin. When we think about taxation, when you see taxation somewhere, what comes to your mind? Okay, do you think about, let's say, maybe you think about things like this. You're like, okay, taxation means the government getting money from people. Okay, taxation means the government getting money from people. Well, that's correct. Okay, because when we talk about taxation, we are basically saying the money that people and businesses are actually required to pay to the government. So when we talk about taxation, it's basically a requirement where me as an individual, as Ronald Kashweka, have to pay money to the government. I have to remit money to the government, where businesses as well are also supposed to remit money to the government. That's individuals, businesses, any person making money or earning a living in Zambia is supposed to give a portion of their money to the government. I won't say it's a right, and also I won't say it's a right, and I won't say it's a choice. It's basically an obligation. It's not a choice, but it's an obligation. It's something that we are obliged to do. We are supposed to, every single time we are making a living, like you are making money. Every single time you make money, you're supposed to give a portion of that money to the government. That's what taxation is. So taxation means the money that people and businesses are required to pay the government. It is not a choice. It's never a choice. It's a legal requirement. It's a legal obligation. So a simple definition of taxation, we can say this is the process. Okay, we can say the process where the government collects money from people. By the way, they're not just collecting money from individuals. Okay, they're collecting money from people and businesses Do you know the purpose of taxation? So the main reason why the government actually collects money from people and businesses is so as to spend that money for public services. An example can be, imagine this, ZICA CA gets money from you. You pay as you earn. If you have an income, you're working somewhere, you pay as you earn. If you're running a business and the business is making over 800,000 kwacha, you pay income tax. If it's below 800,000 kwacha, of which I'm told it's the threshold might change, the 800,000 kwacha, and
Hello, Ronald, you're breaking.
yes, it will go much higher. Okay, but for now, let's just say if it's still 800,000 kwacha, okay, Mr. Manso, how is it now? Okay.
Much better.
Let me just use a different mic. Just hold. All right. I guess we can proceed.
Apologies for my bad network. Fortunately, I had a backup. I always do. Okay, so I'm going to use the backup. So I was saying, if a particular business is earning 800,000 kwacha and below, they are going to spend money. They're going to give a portion of that 800,000 kwacha to the government through turnover tax. If it's above the 800,000 kwacha, that's for an entire year. They're going to give that same exact amount. They're not the same exact amount. They're going to give the portion of whatever they've made to the government through income tax. So everybody actually gives money to the government. It might be through withholding tax, pay as you earn, there's always an aspect of giving a portion of whatever money you make to the government. So taxation, by definition, we can say is the process where the government actually collects money from the people and businesses with the intention of paying for public services. So I'll say to pay for public services. Okay, so right now we are actually starting from scratch. We are starting from the beginning. Might sound complicated, might sound complex, might feel as though it's too much. When you look at the manual, it might scare you, but trust me, there's always a way of summarizing it and making it super easy to understand. Okay, so the government will do this. Okay, the government will get money from your business, and then when they get the money from your business, they'll actually spend that same money on public services. Examples of public services that the government might spend money on: they might build schools. Okay, they might build schools. Maybe they might, make some roads, hospitals, etc. Okay, they might build schools, roads, and hospitals, or they might pay salaries for the civil servants. They are paying salaries for public workers. For instance, we can talk about teachers, doctors, and police officers. Okay, and also they might basically just support the economy to try and reduce inequality. So they might just support the economy so as to try and reduce inequality. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why the government actually gets money from you and me. They collect money from businesses and individuals so as to spend it on public services. So the process of actually getting the money from you is what we call taxation. The process where the government collects money from people and businesses so as to use that money on public services. That's what we call taxation. Let me give you an example. If let's say you have a salary of 10,000 kwacha per month, the government will definitely collect a portion of that 10,000 kwacha. They might get 1,000 kwacha, okay, depending on the tax bands, okay. They might get I don't know how much they're going to get. We'll have to calculate it, but we'll get to learn that. It's actually the next topic after the introduction, okay. So they'll collect a portion of your money. In the process, you are remitting that portion of your money to the government, okay, as income tax. Okay, but I have a question. Why do you think the government collects money from you? Can anyone comment? Why do you think the government actually collects money from you?
To raise revenues. It's a form of raising revenue.
Perfect. So the government actually gets money from you so as to raise money for the country. For the government, taxation is a source of revenue. Okay, just like for instance, if you are running a small business, a kantemba somewhere, you selling whatever you are selling is a source of revenue. Okay, or if you're working for some company, you earning a salary is a source of income. Okay, if you are running a multi-billion-dollar business and then you selling whatever you are selling is a source of revenue, taxation is a source of revenue for the government. Okay, so the government collects money from you because they want the money so that they spend on public services such as the roads, the schools, the hospitals, the salaries for public workers or civil servants, or basically efforts to try and make the economy better. Okay, so the first reason I said is revenue. The reason why the reason why we have taxation, the first reason I said is revenue, basically to collect money so for the country, so that the country has money to spend on country expenses, various country expenses. And then the other thing is redistribution. Okay, so the way it is that we actually have a line between people who are super wealthy and people who are not really doing very well in life. So what the government does is that it collects money from the super rich and it tries to give it to the poor. So they're basically trying to help the poor by collecting money from the rich. Have you noticed how if you're making a whole lot of money, your taxes, the tax that you actually remit to the government is very high. It's more like this. The more income you make, the more tax you remit. That's just the way it is. So the main reason why it's like that, it's because they are trying a redistribution of income. They are getting money from the rich and giving it to the poor. So basically, the government acts as our Robin Hood. Okay, and then the other reason why taxation is actually important, or the purpose of taxation, is regulation. Okay, so what the government does is like, for instance, if you're running a business that does something that affects the environment, they might charge you a very high tax to try and reduce those type of businesses. Okay, an example can be like, for instance, the government can control things like smoking by taxing cigarettes. The more effect something has, the higher the tax, because they're trying to reduce it. They're trying to regulate it. So the other purpose is regulation. So right now we have revenue, getting money for the business, getting revenue for the business so as to spend on public services. The other reason is to help the poor by collecting money from the rich, which is the redistribution. The other reason is regulation, trying to control vices or anything that basically affects either the economy or basically, let me say, the environment. An example that I've given you, they tax cigarettes so as to control smoking. And then also, the other purpose of taxation is basically development. Okay, so how does development come in? The government actually invests money. They get money from you and me. Every single time I earn a salary, the government gets money. Every single time you sell something, the government gets money. And that money that they get, they use it even in infrastructure development. Okay, so when we talk about development, we are talking about the government getting tax from you and then putting that money in infrastructure development. So on the purposes, we have revenue, getting money, we have redistribution, giving money from the Robin Hood. The government gets money from more tax from the rich and then gives to the poor. We have regulation, controlling bad vices or anything that affects the environment. And then we have development, the infrastructure development, like for instance, building roads, ensuring you have safe drinking water, or maybe, subsidizing electricity, things like that with the tax that you actually put in. Okay, like I said, this is an intro to taxation. So we get to understand what tax is, the theory of tax. So now we know what tax is, why it's important, the purpose of taxation, and a simple explanation of what taxation is. Now let's get to the features of a good tax system. Okay, let's get to the features of a good tax system. And by the way, if you have a question, I'm more than happy to respond to the question. You can simply just let me know, and then you can ask your question. Okay, so on the features of a good tax system, I'm going to give you a mnemonic. By mnemonic, I mean a memory aid. This mnemonic will be like this: CECE. This will be the mnemonic that I'm going to give you. CECE, features of a good tax system. When you're writing the exam, and all of a sudden, ZICA decides to ask you a question on, they're like, okay, what are the features of a good tax system? And then you just remember CEC, CECE, and then it will basically help you remember, and then you get to write your solutions. So CECE simply means, I'll type it like this: CECE as well. So we have CECE. This is a mnemonic. It's a memory aid to try and master it. The first thing is certainty. Okay? The first C actually means certainty. And then the second E means equity. And then the second C means convenience. And then the last E means efficiency. By the way, I've actually created this, okay? Okay, so we have the first C, which is certainty, and then the first E, which is equity, and then after equity, we have the convenience, and then we have efficiency. Okay, perfect. So here we're looking at the features of a good tax system, characteristics of a good tax system. What makes a tax system to be a good one? What defines a very good tax system? Okay, so we have certainty, equity, convenience, and efficiency. Okay, I know I'm definitely going to explain this, but let me just ask a random question. When I talk about certainty here, my first C, what do you think it means?
It's accurate.
Okay, it's accurate. Equity. Convenience. Efficiency.
Should be easy to compute on
Okay.
convenience.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Yes, they're actually correct. Okay, so uncertainty, when we talk about you being certain, it means you being sure. Okay, so ZRA, I'll use ZRA because we are looking at the Zambian tax system. So ZRA will have to be 100% transparent. All their information should be open, in the open. Like you have to know how much to pay and when to pay it. Okay, so by certainty, I mean taxpayers are supposed to know how much to pay for each tax and when to pay it. Okay, so taxpayers are supposed to know how much to pay for each tax. I left out each here. For each tax and when to pay it. Okay, so taxpayers are supposed to know how much to pay for each tax and when to pay it. I'll give you an example. If we talk about let's say turnover tax, you need to know, like, okay, turnover tax is computed like this and it's on this date. When you talk about VAT, okay, it's computed like this and it's on this date. Every single time you need to know the date and the amount. That's the certainty. It means you are sure, you have the information at your disposal. You can even compute the tax and know when to pay it or when to remit it without ZRA's assistance, because you have all the information at your disposal. That's a feature that makes a very, very good tax system. Okay, the other one is equity. On equity here, I'm not talking about capital, by the way, in case you are thinking about, the equity in financial reporting or the equity in financial accounting. Here, I'm talking about fairness. The tax system is supposed to be fair, by the way. Okay, so rich people, what this means is that rich people are supposed to pay more than the poor. Imagine this. I'm earning, imagine if there's a fixed tax amount everyone is supposed to pay. I'm earning 5,000 kwacha and I'm supposed to pay 2,000 kwacha in taxes. And someone is earning 50,000 kwacha and they're paying 2,000 kwacha in taxes. Do you think that's fair? It's not, right? So there's supposed to be equity. Rich people are actually supposed to spend more money on taxes than the poor. And then the other one is convenience. When you talk about convenience, we are looking at easy to pay. It shouldn't be complicated. Every single time we are supposed to make a payment, it's supposed to be very, very easy. We can make the payments maybe through the banks or using mobile money or Airtel money, whatever facilities we have at our disposal. But the fact is that a good tax system should ensure that tax is very, very easy to pay. Okay, and then efficiency, it shouldn't cost too much. It shouldn't cost too much to collect, okay, or cause any problems. It basically shouldn't cost too much to collect when ZICA is collecting it or cause any problems. So every single time you see a question that's asking for the good features, or basically features that make a very good tax system, think about CECE, the certainty, equity, convenience, and efficiency. Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, so now we are going to do a summary of the types. We understand what taxation is. We know what a tax is. We know the purpose of taxation, and we know the features of a good tax system by now. But we are going to understand the types of taxes. The types of taxes. Okay? I know you've probably been seeing, like, you probably see direct tax, indirect tax, but you're wondering, like, what does that mean? Okay, so today you are going to know. So we are looking at the types of taxes. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to look at the types of taxes. So in terms of taxes, we have two main types of taxes. I'm not talking about too many. I'm talking about two main, like two. We have two types. Two types of taxes. We have direct taxes and we have indirect taxes. Okay? We have two types of taxes. We have direct taxes and then we have indirect taxes. The direct taxes are paid directly to the government. They get your money and, okay, it's money. The government gets the money from you directly. That's why they are called direct taxes. So a direct tax is a tax that is paid directly to the government. An example of a direct tax is, for instance, pay as you earn, which is charged on your salary. Or basically, we can talk about company income tax on business profits. That's also an example of a direct tax. So direct tax are taxes that are paid directly to the government. That's the reason why they are known as direct tax. But indirect taxes, before I explain this one, can someone try and explain it? Indirect taxes, what do you think? If direct taxes are taxes that you pay directly to the government, then what are indirect taxes? Hello, anyone?
Indirect taxes are taxes that are paid through via value addition. Let's say you go to ShopRite, you buy, like you said, a pack of cigarettes, there's a tax there that will be recorded. So you're going to pay ShopRite, then ShopRite will pay output or input VAT on it. Yes.
Okay, all right, perfect. That's actually correct. So this one we say directly paid to the government. So yeah, this one we say directly paid to the government. And then the indirect taxes. So for the direct taxes, we say directly to pay to the government, and the examples that we gave are pay as you earn on your salary, company income taxes on business profits, and then the indirect taxes we are talking about price taxes that are actually included in prices. Every single time you pay for something, the tax will be included, goods and services. Examples I can give the same tax Mr. Mansa gave. We can talk about VAT. Okay, that's an example of an indirect tax, and we can also talk about excise duty. That's let's say there's excise duty on beer, cigarettes, fuel. That's also an example of an indirect tax. So direct taxes, I said we have pay as you earn. We can talk about TOT. We can talk about income tax, and then indirect taxes. We can talk about VAT. We can talk about excise duty. Okay, an example that I can give you is this. Imagine this: if you buy a soft drink for 10 kwacha, if you buy a soft drink for 10 kwacha, let's say you buy Fruticana for 10 kwacha, 1.6 kwacha of that 10 kwacha may go to the government as VAT. Okay, because the VAT is actually at 16%. But okay, you pay this indirectly through the seller. Are you getting me? You buy a soft drink for 10 kwacha. You buy a drink, you go to ShopRite and you say, okay, I want Fruticana. And then they say, okay, Fruticana is 10 kwacha. You give them the 10 kwacha. Okay? You've paid tax indirectly to the government through the seller of about 1.6 kwacha. Does anyone have any question on direct taxes and indirect taxes before we go to the tax administration in Zambia? We look at how they actually do it. Mr. Mansa, do you have any question on direct taxes or indirect taxes?
No question.
Mavis?
No questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so if I were to ask a random question, let's say we talk about let's say a company actually remits income tax charged on its profit uh, to the government. Is that a direct tax or an indirect tax?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, let's say a business, like for instance, let's say RK Solutions makes profits and then it pays the government 35% of the profits as income tax. Is that a direct tax or an indirect tax in terms of the types of taxes?
It would be a direct tax.
It's a direct tax.
Perfect. The reason why it's a direct tax is because the money goes directly to the government. The money is remitted directly to the government, making it a direct tax. The indirect taxes are always in prices. The government won't get the money from you, but the seller will. You know, every single time they're setting up a price, they add their taxes on top. Like for instance, if you're paying for channels or I don't know what you pay, they might charge you TV levy. Okay. If you are buying a drink in ShopRite, they might charge you VAT. Every single time, it's on top of it. Okay. Sometimes if you were to get an invoice, you look at it, you might find the amount excluding VAT and then the total amount. If you were to look at your receipt directly, you notice that these people actually got money from me. Okay, so I'm basically paying my taxes, but I'm not paying it directly. I'm paying it indirectly. So it's an indirect tax. Okay, perfect. If we don't have any questions, let's go to tax administration. Okay, let's go to tax administration. So we actually get to understand what this is. Let me just say admin. Yeah, just leave it like this. Okay, perfect. Okay, so when we talk, I'm not talking about any other country here. When we talk about Zambia in particular, Zambia's tax is managed by an institution called the Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA. Just like the way ZICA, you know what ZICA does? ZICA regulates the accounting profession in Zambia. For you to work as an accountant, you need to have a license, ZICA a license, okay? You need to be a ZICA accountant. So ZICA regulates the accounting profession in Zambia. When we talk about the taxes, ZRA manages the tax in Zambia. It manages the entire taxation system in Zambia. Okay, so when you every single time we just see tax admin, we are basically looking at how ZRA manages the taxes and the structures and functions of ZRA. How they manage the tax, okay, the structures and the functions of ZRA. I know almost everyone here has probably used ZRA before. So let's start with the functions. Okay, let's start with the functions. So with the functions, I'll just, I know, I'm thinking of functions as well. Okay, I'm thinking of functions as well, but I just want people to participate. I'm thinking of functions, but let's talk about functions. What do you think are the functions of ZRA? I'll write them down. What do you think are the functions of ZRA?
I think to collect revenue.
Okay, perfect. That's correct. We can actually be more specific by saying to collect all types of taxes. Yeah, it is the revenue. Okay, so it's correct. Any other function?
Regulate, act as a regulator to certain products that could be considered harmful to the environment.
You mean like what I said about high taxes on things that they feel inappropriate?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Mm, that's actually correct. Let's see. Okay, I'll say regulate. They actually do regulate businesses, so I'll just say regulate businesses. Okay. Any other?
To give out information about
Perfect.
taxes to companies or any other changes.
Yes. So they actually do educate people and businesses about taxes. So they educate people and businesses about taxes. So by the way, in case you have a question about taxes, you can ask me. I'm more than happy to explain. Or if you're running a business and then you want to understand how a certain tax works or how to do a certain return, you can call me. I'm more than happy to assist. But also, Zidara also assists. They are also more than happy to educate people about taxes. You can simply give them a call and then they'll help you all the way as well. Okay, all right, perfect. Any other function? What do you think is the other thing
To
that it does?
To carry out tax assessments and to advise on the amount of tax a particular business should pay.
Okay, so you said carry out tax assessments
Yes.
and advise on what?
The amount that a particular business should pay, depending on how much they earn.
Is supposed to pay. Okay, so basically here we are looking at auditing tax returns. Yeah, it's a function. So in case they don't trust you, ZRA has trust issues, by the way. In case they don't trust you, they feel you are stealing from them, you are invading tax, then they'll carry out audit. They'll audit your taxes, do your tax returns. They'll reconcile it with all your records. Like for instance, just an example, if it's income tax, they'll have to basically do an audit of your income to ensure that everything is correct. and to ensure that your tax is correct. If it's not, it might even arrest you. It's a crime to evade tax. Okay, all right, perfect. Any other function? Okay, so they also follow up. They also follow up on unpaid taxes. For instance, if you submitted a return but didn't pay, you'll probably be charged penalties. If it's a late return, you'll be charged penalties. If you submit a return and you don't pay, you'll be charged penalties. And if you still don't pay, they'll follow up. They'll follow you wherever you are and ask you why you're not paying. And they'll ensure you pay. Because it's no longer your money. That money actually belongs to the government. And the other thing is that they actually register taxpayers. That's the reason why they give everyone a taxpayer identification number, a TIPIN. Okay, so the way the Zambian taxation system actually works is that it has got many types of taxes, many categories of taxes. The main ones that you're probably maybe familiar with as well are taxes like pay as you earn, which is meant for employees. We can talk about company income tax, which is meant for businesses. We can talk about withholding tax, which is meant for interest, rent, or commissions. We can also talk about VAT, which is which is charged on goods and services. We can also talk about customs and excise duty, which is charged on imported goods. Okay, all right. Does anyone have any question on tax administration? The functions of the Zambia Revenue Authority and the various taxes that we all pay, depending with which industry or role we are playing in this country. We don't have any questions?
No question.
No question from.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I will send links, group links to everybody who was in this meeting because I want to share some notes with everyone who is in this meeting. And I also want everyone who is in this meeting to also watch the recording of this session. So I'll share the recording of this session in the morning tomorrow and a PDF document that summarizes what we've talked about and even more. And the manual, the ZICA original manual in the group for taxation as well. I think I've already shared it with Mr. Mwansa. I'll share it in the group as well for everyone else to have an access. Okay, so today's session was mainly focusing on this introduction for us to understand taxes, and unfortunately we only had an hour. The next time we meet, we'll talk about liabilities, like tax liabilities and personal tax computations. We'll actually get to the dirty work where we literally start computing taxes, okay? All right. By the way, those who don't know me, my name is Rand Kashweka, and I actually offer online lessons. And don't forget to follow me on YouTube as well. And if you'd like to join my classes, you can. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. For today, we are going to end right here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ronald.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.